Good morning, everyone. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another edition of Classic Album Rewind, where we take a look at a cool classic album from a classic band that probably is overshadowed just a bit by its big brother or big sister that came before it. The iconic album that came before it, the big selling album that came before it, or perhaps just the album that most people usually go to, calling it the best album or the most famous album, the most popular album, that sort of thing in the catalog. But this follow-up is, by no means a slouch. So today we're going to take a look at an album released May 15th, 1970 on the Island, depending on where you lived, Island, Atlantic, Vertigo. Those are all the labels that it appeared on. Produced by Peter Sinfield, Robert Fripp. Recorded at Wessex Sound Studios in London, England. Of course, I'm talking about in the wake of Poseidon. Now, of course, that follows In the Court of the Crimson King, the granddaddy of all prog rock releases. And again, you've got that very kind of ambiguous, kind of creepy album art on the second album as well. Got all these heads adorning the cover, which all represent something. It's really, I never really looked that much into it, but I was doing a little research on this album, and all these faces, I believe there's a dozen of them all throughout the album, represent different things. We've got the Fool, represents fire and water. You got the Actress, water and fire. The Observer, air and earth. The Old Woman, earth and air. The Warrior, fire and earth. The Slave, earth and fire. The Child, water and air. The Patriarch, air and water. The Logician, air and fire. The Joker, fire and air. The Enchantress, water and earth. And Mother Nature, earth and water. So, and I never knew there was like a dozen of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Yeah, so, all sorts of curiosities on this album cover. So, again, this was released, hot on the heels of In the Court of the Crimson King. And basically, by the time this album was released, this is a band in complete, chaos and transition. So the original lineup, you got some guys hanging on to help make the album, but they were already going on to do other things. You got Robert Fripp on guitar, Mellotron, and a couple other keyboards and things. You got Peter Sinfield, of course, producing and writing lyrics. But then you got all this other personnel who kind of helped out, but were no longer in the band. Michael Giles plays drums on a couple tracks. Greg Lake sings on 5 tracks. You've got Mel Collins coming into the band, helping out on saxophone and flute. You got Gordon Haskell helping out on vocals on 1 track. He would join the band as well. You got Peter Giles playing bass. Keith Tippett helping out on piano on a couple tracks. He would also kind of come and go from the band over the next couple of years. And that would kind of formulate the next lineup of King Crimson along with other individuals, right? So here, very much a band in transition. But a great album nonetheless. Sometimes, and we've talked about this many times here on the channel, sometimes chaos, whether it's like changing lineups or, drugs and alcohol or, whatever the crazy situation, sometimes back in the golden era of rock and roll, that seemed to kind of stimulate, influence the music that we got. All right. So starting off, we've got a short little interlude track, which actually appears 3 times throughout the album, all in kind of different incarnations. We've got Peace, a Beginning, which is just under a minute long, very quiet, kind of like build. It's like one of those kind of segue tracks that helps to build the next piece, which is Pictures of a City. Which, to me is almost like the sequel to 21st Century Schizoid Man. It's got that kind of schizophrenic feel to it. It's again, we weren't calling this prog back in the day, but it's got those complicated rhythms and all this, really intricate passages. It's almost jazz fusion. Before, this is almost like Mahavishnu Orchestra before there was a Mahavishnu, right? Greg Lake, awesome on vocals on here. Very cool song. I love Pictures of the City. Next, after that, we've got Cadence and Cascade. All right, which is interesting song, very jazzy. Very jazzy. Here you've got some kind of cool little, vocals from Greg Lake, and this wonderful Keith Tippett, very jazzy, almost free jazz piano stuff. Very cool piece, very different. This album just goes like all over the place. Then you've got track number 4, the last song on side A, is In the Wake of Poseidon, the title track, 8 minutes and change. Basically, again, kind of like Pictures of a City is like the sequel to 21st Century Schizoid Man. In the Wake of Poseidon is basically your sequel to either Epitaph or the title track In the Court of the Crimson King. Big, tremendous mellotron swells, wonderful Greg Lake vocals. I mean, it's just, another incredible song. And I made a mistake on the track before. Gordon Haskell actually sings Cadence and Cascade, not Greg Lake. Okay, Greg Lake is back for cat food. Sorry about that. But yeah, back to the Wake of Poseidon. Again, if you love the kind of really emotional, heart-tugging, mellotron all over the place type of atmosphere of Epitaph and In the Court of the Crimson King, In the Wake of Poseidon slides right up next to those. Just a tremendous song that's just so powerful and so uniquely King Crimson. All right, got some nice little guitar touches from Robert Fripp as well, but this song is all about Greg Lake's vocals and that massive mellotron. Okay, over on side B, second half of the disc as well, you got Peace, a Theme, another little instrumental, another kind of take on the whole peace thing on this album. Here it's all about Robert Fripp and his cool little kind of like jazzy guitar. It's just over a minute long. From there, you've got another cool kind of jazzy track called Cat Food, very quirky. All right, cat food, again with the playful Greg Lake vocals. All right, you got Keith Tippett back on piano. Just a really kind of fun, playful song. Again, just, kind of like Cadence and Cascade, which is, again, kind of jazzy, kind of poppy, kind of soaring. You got Cat Food, also really playful. Just kind of like a different, adds a nice little flavor to this album where you've got like all these other just, longer, menacing and emotional tracks. Speaking of menacing, then we've got The Devil's Triangle, the 11 minutes and change instrumental that comes up next, broken up into 3 parts, based on, of course, the old Mars musical. Haunting, chilling, I don't even know how else to describe it. It's mellotron heaven, but it's just like, it's scary mellotron. This is not the gorgeousness of In the Wake of Poseidon. This is just The Devil's Triangle, Murday Morn, Hand of Sieron, and Garden of Worm. I mean, this is just like, it's creepy-ass classical music meets rock and roll. And if you never thought that the mellotron could create some really scary sounds, The Devil's Triangle is that song. And then to kind of take things out, you got Peace and End, again, kind of like more like spoken word type of light instrumentation to take out the album. So really cool album. Maybe for some a little too similar to its predecessor, but I think it has enough different things. I think there are moments on the album that segue beautifully into what we would see on Lizard and Island. Okay. That move into kind of jazzier realms and things like that. Crimson always kind of reinventing themselves. And I think this does a great job. So there's some standout tracks on here. I dig this quite a bit. I think it's absolutely a King Crimson classic. Is it a top 3 album? Perhaps not. But it deserves to be mentioned up in the upper echelon of albums, along with the debut, Lark's Tongues and Aspic, Red, Discipline. I mean, all these are classic King Crimson albums, and this is absolutely one of them. So there is your classic album rewind for today, In the Wake of Poseidon. Curious to hear your feelings on this album, and if you've never listened to it before, now's your chance to do so. Let us know what you think. If you're well familiar with it, let's hear what you think about it. Go back and listen to it again, and enjoy all the greatness that is In the Wake of Poseidon. This is on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, of course, we're here on YouTube all the damn time. Thanks for watching, everybody. Tune in every day here on the channel for another edition of Classic Album Rewind. We've got the Monsters Den coming up tonight. It's all about David Cronenberg, ranking our favorite 5 David Cronenberg films. Martin Popoff back in the house tomorrow morning for the Funhouse. And then we got some cool ranking the album shows coming up this weekend, so stay tuned for those as well. So I am Pete Pardo. Thanks for watching. Visit us on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter. Of course, we're here on YouTube all the damn time. See you soon. Bye-bye.